creature.
Tickle.
Did you grow up with the NES, PlayStation, Star Wars, cartoons, and 80s TV? Do you like to think who would win in a fight between Batman and the Master Chief? Comics, games, movies, music, and TV. They're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. Comics, games, movies, music, and TV. They're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of This Week in Geek. This Week in Geek.
Happy Halloween out there in podcast land. It is I, one of your trick-or-treaters for this evening. I am your host, Mike the Birdman Dobb, but I'm not alone as I trek down this most unusual entry in our commentaries that we do, usually for the big holidays, but I'm joined by my compatriot in arms,
Alex, the producer, in the studio.
That's right. We are recording this just before Halloween 2021. My God, I've had a lot of Halloweens. As we record this today is my 40th birthday. Go me. So yeah, good times.
You're old.
I am old.
You remember the 80s.
I do remember the 80s.
I only remember being bit by a kid in my apartment building when I was 2. That's my 80s memory.
I remember a good chunk. As I was born in 1981. I didn't see my first Halloween movie, though, until probably the 1990s. I think I saw them during high school. So, as you can guess, yes, we're going to be talking about Halloween, but not what you might expect. This was suggested by you.
Yeah, we had a discussion, and you were saying, which Halloweens have you seen? Which ones haven't you? I said, and I was being a blasphemer in that I don't like the original Halloween. Mm-hmm. I find the first two boring, which is the ones I'd seen, and I'd seen a bit of the Rob Zombie one, and then I saw the two most recent ones. Mm-hmm. I had heard of the other ones in the late 80s, in the 90s.
Like 4 or 5.
And how they had like cults and weird stuff happening in it, and I guess, would your first one have been maybe the one with Paul Rudd in 95?
No, the one I first saw was, I think, Return of Michael Myers, which was number 4.
So 87?
Yeah.
Or 88?
Something like that. That's where they introduced the Jamie Lloyd character.
I think it was
Danielle Harris.
88 it was the 10th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. And the first Halloween I'd ever actually seen was H2O.
Yes. I saw that one at a drive-in. When I was a teenager, I think, or in my early 20s anyway, with a couple friends. And I like Michael Myers as a character, but if you ask me who's going to win in a fight between him and Jason Voorhees, Jason's going to take him apart at the seams.
Well, unless it's Halloween Kills.
Yeah, well, even then, he's still a man, whereas Jason has been a supernatural guy since at least part 6.
Yeah, I was going to say, not to spoil the new movie, but it felt very late 80s.
Very tanky.
Felt very Friday the 13th, part 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah, it's pretty gory. It's a really good time, but there are some problems with the story.
Yeah.
But that's a conversation.
Maybe in a couple years we'll do a commentary on that one.
I would actually love to do the trilogy at some point. I think that would be a lot of fun. So, for today's suggestion, as you may have noticed on Amazon and ShoutFactory.com, there is a new series of Halloween 4K discs. And Alex got me one for my birthday. He got me Halloween 3, which is Season of the Witch.
Partially for selfish reasons, in that I had never seen it, and you're like, it's the Halloween that's not like Halloween.
Yeah, and so we put this inside my Xbox, and I couldn't even tell you where the case is now. So it's somewhere. But anyway, yeah, so we're going to watch this today, and this is the Halloween, as Alex said, this is the Halloween that isn't Halloween. This was after John Carpenter had wanted to kind of change things and said, I want to make a new Halloween movie, but I don't want it to be Michael Myers. He blew up in the second one with Dr. Loomis, which should have closed the whole Laurie Strode circle. That story should have been concluded, but the Akkad family, who was very involved in the Halloween franchise, is like, You know what's cool? Money. So
And you know what else is cool? Circa 81, 82. You know what was getting big right then?
What?
Anthologies like
Tales from the Dark Side.
that was a little later, but it was
Twilight
Zone Return, Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Love that show.
And this is right around, it hadn't come out yet, but this is right around the time that Creep Show and that sort of stuff was happening.
Yep.
So I did, only thing I read about this was that Carpenter wanted to make Halloween a franchise of anthology movies with very different ideas. Sort of what eventually evolved into, I guess, Masters of Horror.
Yeah, which
Like-
was like Mick Garris and Toby Hooper, Guillermo del Toro.
And didn't he do one too?
Yep. I'm
So-
pretty sure he did. Yeah, I think he did Tales on and Off a Mountain Road, which is season 1 of Masters of Horror, I think.
And they were like 1 hour or an hour and 10-minute TV movies.
Yes, and they were all dramatically different. They were all very cool. Actually, you probably didn't know this. Michael Ironside's in one of them.
I believe it. It's the right time period, so I guess that it took years to finally get realized, but I guess this is that. And I know this has some actors in it that you're like, oh my God, I love them.
Yeah, like Tom Atkins is in this, and I know him
does he
from Night of
say
the Creeps.
Thrill Me in this one too?
I think he might actually.
Because I think he says it in The Fog.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. So yeah, so without any further ado, we're going to get this rocking and rolling here. So your counters should read 000, and we're going to hit play on the Xbox, and there might be a slight delay while things go, but that's just kind of the way it is. So if you want to get ready, Alex, you want to give me a count in from 5?
All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, your counter should now read 1, 3, 4, 5. You should be synced up. You should see the Universal logo.
And then we'll
Man,
see.
this looks... It's got just the right amount of grain to it, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, well, and that's what I find. 4K, they're doing less DNR.
Yeah.
And for a second, I thought that was noise from outside, but it's a terrifying synth sound from the TV.
I've always appreciated the Halloween music, like whenever John Carpenter
So
does
was
it.
the Akkad family, did they put up the money for Carpenter's first film? Is that what it was?
I don't know. I don't remember. Actually, there's a couple of documentaries on YouTube that do detail Halloween. The one that I watched is like 2 hours, and I think it's called Halloween When He Comes Home. It's narrated by a woman, and that's arguably, I think, one of the best Halloween docs out there, because it does go through the entire franchise, at least up until that point. The Rob Zombie movies were just coming into ideas at that point. And my opinion on the Rob Zombie movies has changed in the last couple of years. Like, I like the first movie. I will defend that one until the end. But I hate the second one.
His movies suffer from a lifelessness. He does do a lot of like the trashy grindhouse
Hillbillies.
look,
Yeah.
but there never seems to be any joy from the people making it. Like
I hear 31 was good.
but you know, you get the feeling that it's just like they're drab. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of the 80s movies felt like, even if they had that look, they have a feeling of excitement, and I don't really get that from most of his pictures.
The one I'm kind of looking forward to, I'm cautiously optimistic, is as of this recording, photos have come out, the first official looks at 1313 Mockingbird Lane, and it's the Munsters. So there's Herman, Lily, and Grandpa. Sherry Moon plays Lily. She looks okay, which is good. Grandpa looks about what I expected,
Okay.
and Herman looks fine. I just don't lean into the hillbilly shit. If I hear Grandpa Munster call someone
A
some
cocksucker.
yeah, or some racial
though,
slur,
Even though in real life that's what the original guy would have done because he was an asshole.
which I always loved Grandpa Munster. I also loved when they put him in Gremlins 2.
Because wasn't he like a mainstay for a while in his later life on
Like
Stern?
comedy show. Yeah, I think
Constantly
so.
swearing and saying heinous shit. You're like, oh God. But it's sort of like every 20, 30 years there's remakes. Isn't there going to be an Addams Family remake, live action, with Tim Burton directing it?
It's going to be on Netflix for Wednesday.
I'm pretty sure. Isn't it Tim Burton?
or something like. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's
working on something. And it's all like shows in the 50s and early 60s. They had the reboots in the 90s, and now we're getting them again.
Yeah.
So now we're opening to an overpass.
Somebody's running.
Now, Carpenter didn't direct this, but it has his signature look.
Yeah, like he did the score along with someone else, and you can always tell.
Deborah Hill, who's his co-writer on a lot of his earlier films.
Yeah, I think they used to be married.
Again, I don't know. I just know that they co-wrote and co-produced a lot of his early stuff.
Yeah. And you don't have to be married to someone to make good work.
You know what I'm surprised at? I know Carpenter has said he's retired. He's tired of the system and everything and how he doesn't want to make movies. He just likes putting his hand out, waiting for the checks to fall into it for remakes. Why hasn't somebody that is a real modern, like why isn't like maybe not Eli Roth, but if there's somebody that's really good at making these suspenseful horror films, there's been a sort of a renaissance with, remember Piranha 3D was made. Yeah. It was like, why has nobody asked him very politely or even gone to meet him, say, would you please do my score? Because he travels around in a band now and plays. And
I would love to hear John Carpenter do a video game score.
Well, and I know people said, why hasn't he directed a video game? He said nobody's asked him, but like, why hasn't, like, could you imagine if EA, trying to get good press, said, by the way, the Dead Space new game remake, the score is being done by John Carpenter?
That would be awesome.
It could be minimalistic, and he could do some fun stuff with synth. He's a big video game fan. In his retirement, why doesn't he just make really cool-ass synth soundtracks?
I would like to see them do a Halloween video game. There have been a couple on PC, like very, very early PC. But you can play as Michael Myers and Laurie in Dead by Daylight, though I'm pretty sure that license expires really soon. I know the Stranger Things license expires like next month. So if you want to buy DLC for Dead by Daylight, you better get on it.
You got the chain.
Oh.
You know how there was that Castle Rock show that was like an amalgamation of all the Stephen King's works?
Yeah.
Why don't they make a show that's an amalgamation of all his worlds?
That would be interesting. Like,
the slow death. That was weird. That guy that just got crushed kind of looks like Polka Dot Man from Suicide Squad.
Yeah, very much so. Which that guy's profile has got to come up so much from The Dark Knight to being one of the leads in Suicide Squad. He'll get a lot more work now.
He's doing something else. It was either Marvel or DC. I saw him in a recent trailer. See that giant starfish? That's your mother. I'm a goddamn super.
Splat. Such a good movie.
So these two guys were chasing this dude for unknown reasons, to us at least so far.
Yep.
I like the old. Is that a Coke machine or is that an ice box?
That's a Coke machine, old style.
Yeah. Stonehenge. I always love when you watch like an 80s movie and then to be spooky, they'll throw on that old 70s special Children of the Gods or Chariots of the Gods, where it's all like the alien conspiracy stuff. Or I saw something recently where on the TV in the background, because it's supposed to be like the late 80s, early 90s, it was Leonard Nimoy's In Search of series on.
Oh, wow. This is the song everybody knows about this movie. Silver Shamrock.
Sammy Davis Jr. lookalike.
Now, one of the neat things...
Well, that's terrifying.
Do you recognize that from Halloween Kills? The masks?
I actually recognize it. They remind me of Goosebumps more than anything.
It's actually kind of cool. I was really glad that the directors and the producers behind Halloween Kills put those masks in as a nod to this movie. Although I was actually trying to get one because my friend Liam did a bunch of really cool stuff for me this summer. He actually gave me a Freddy vs. Jason screen accurate mask because I was having a really shitty August, and I was hoping to get him something for Halloween.
Sorry, Safe lubrication. I'm sorry, I'm a child. Anyway,
And-
yes.
Trying to find quality replicas of these masks is surprisingly difficult, but I'm thinking, I guess because of the success of Halloween Kills, maybe I'll be able to find them now.
Etsy, my friend.
Yeah.
Probably gonna be stores popping up doing
Latex
legally
work.
distinct hockey mask guy or legally distinct Shatner mask. Dude really looks like Sammy Davis Jr.
He really does.
And Samuel L. Jackson had a baby together. Samuel Jr. I love that. Pew pew.
Tom Atkins like a motherfucker.
Fucking Kmart Tom Skerritt.
But I find Tom Atkins more charming than Tom Skerritt. I don't know. There's something about the swagger I get from him. I remember those cheap Halloween masks.
The dollar masks.
Yep. Which I was actually going to Walmart. I went the other week and I was looking at some of the Halloween stuff. Some of the costumes are really impressive. And even with like Spirit Halloween being the Halloween store now,
Oh, a beeper.
you can find so many licensed properties. Like they have like an entire Fallout section now and like Smash Brothers virtually.
I forgot that beeper started in the late 70s when they started switching. It wasn't cellular. The cellular network ran on the old. I think it was the UHF frequencies above a certain thing. Because when I was looking up that information on City TV, because they were originally not channel 57, they were like channel 80
So that's like a UHF
or 79,
frequency, right?
Yeah, and they had to switch out because laws changed about the first cellular networks that were not localized to radio frequencies to being those before we had like the proper satellites. So, and it was for beepers for doctors
Oh.
in the late 70s.
It's kind of weird seeing big TVs mounted in hospitals, but I remember
The fact when they weighed like 150
Pounds,
pounds,
yep.
and they had to be mounted on two spots in the corner to the roof and the back.
Yep. When I used to go to the hospital in my old hometown, they had these giant TVs, but you're right, they had to be anchored in ridiculous
Well,
fashion.
especially when Best Buy and Future Shop had these 37-inch ones. And I remember asking, why didn't you go to 40? And they said they'd have to be mounted to the steel girders.
Yeah.
Because-
It's amazing how far technology has come.
Well, because a 40-inch TV was 200 pounds.
Yep.
And if you had four of them mounted, like, for north, south, east, and west of the store, in one place, you were looking at over 1,000 pounds. They had to be put right on the steel. Mm-hmm. And then when they switched it to LCDs, they're like, oh, wow, they're only 25 pounds. And when they switched to LEDs, they're like 5 pounds. Now I don't even think stores have the display of the TVs up in the air because
It's nothing now.
the only thing you're ever going to find is when you walk into a store to scare you, it'll have the picture of you walking in and out
Yep.
so you know not to steal. Because apparently you need a reminder.
There's a meme going around on like Instagram where it's like, my friend just brought home a 75-inch TV and I turn it on and it's the KFC menu. And it's clearly in somebody's living room.
Oh, God.
And I always wondered, like, well, I guess that would happen now, wouldn't it?
And not to mention the digital signages, those ones.
You can hack those wirelessly.
They only display at 15 hertz, though. They can't even display movies right. Mm-hmm. So you'd have to hotwire it or change the hardware because they're not meant to display pixels that fast.
Mm-hmm. It's just not worth it.
I'm liking this atmospheric music. That stiff ass. Oh, the couch has no padding on the arms, but I'll tell you though that like school bus padded seat is probably the densest foam you're ever going to sit on.
Yep.
Because they were meant to like those. They had them in the hospitals from like the 1940s to like 1995, and they never like sagged or broke or anything. Here we go. Something crazy going to happen. Oh God. Hospital floors, before they were a plain white colored for purity, it has like a tiled pattern. You'd never see that nowadays.
Nope. And those nurses' shoes, I can't imagine working an 8 to 12 hour shift in those.
Not to mention they don't use tiles in hospitals anymore. It's a solid, like they'll epoxy the ground because it has to be so that you don't slip, also you don't grip. They can't risk a tile peeling up and then a cart hitting it and knocking over.
Yep. Or, you know, any number of different things. Yeah, there's so many things that could go wrong.
Uh-oh. Yeah. What? That's the weirdest... What?
Way to kill someone.
I thought he was... Ah! What the hell was that?
I forgot
That's
how
not
much
even
he
possible
died.
by people's endeavors. You can't pull somebody's... No. But okay. What I like, though, is he had his arm raised, and I was picturing Bubbles from Trailer Park Boys. You fucking want one? Yes, wipe the blood off.
That's why you just ditch the gloves.
So, in your mind, do you picture... I don't know what his fate is in this. We'll find out at the end. But do you picture... In my mind, I'm like, he leaves here, and then he goes to... He has those kids, but he actually also has a high school kid, and he goes right into Night of the Creeps.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Like he leaves here, skips town. He's like, I can't deal with this shit. Changes his job because he wants to protect people, and then bam,
into the Tom Atkins verse. Yeah, this was actually his second movie.
Oh, that's a way of... Well, that looks like awfully a lot like water.
He did. In a really dramatic fashion.
In The Fog, wasn't he Jamie Lee Curtis's boyfriend?
I think so. I've only ever seen The Fog once, but I don't remember a whole lot of it.
I think it's him, Jamie Lee Curtis... People forget she's in that.
Barbara something or other?
Adrienne Barbeau, who was
Adrienne
at one
Barbeau.
point either married or the partner of Carpenter. And I forget who else is in that. He tended to use the same couple actors for 2 or 3 films at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'm sorry, but the firefighter...
Just hanging out.
Well, yeah, he's got his gear, but they would never go to work wearing jeans and a button-down shirt.
Yep, nope.
Like, if he was out of his gear, he would be in sweatpants and a t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Even back then, like they knew not to wear anything that was. You had to wear something that if in the very, emergency, you could easily throw off if it was set on fire. You're not going to wear out a jeans and a button-down shirt.
Yeah, you're going to be able to wear something that's easily change-outable.
Yeah, it'll be like undershirt, t-shirt, and then your protective gear. I've seen a lot of TV shows. I should know this.
One thing I will say this for this 4K disc, the colors are really vibrant. Like, this is the most detail I've seen on...
Well, you can see all the detail on the
mask.
Yeah, like you can see all the little fingerprints, even all the little dirt marks that they would have put on there.
Mm-hmm.
You can even see the 5 o'clock shadow on Atkins's face where he shaves a little bit of the mustache on top to shape it the way he does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if we get real close, we'll probably see the makeup they put on too, because there's usually a line around the edge of the face. In the back in the day, before they used to really blend it well, there would be like a very distinct. It's really noticeable if you watch like 1960s Batman and stuff. You could see where they put the stuff on, because TVs were so blurry it didn't matter if they caked on the makeup, you wouldn't even notice. but in the ages of Blu-ray and 4K, I can see the makeup on her. They put on all that powdery stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She must have oily skin. 4K ruining the illusion for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, like with more modern movies, you don't notice it as
Well,
much.
they've completely changed their makeup.
Yeah.
Because they know people are going to see it in pristine quality. It used to be they had to cake it on because the TV was so blurry, it had to penetrate the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Or things like where a patch on a sheriff's shoulder like that, in the older movies, sometimes it would be very generic and it would almost look fake.
Mm-hmm.
They have to make it look real now because you can see all the details. You can read every bit of text. You can see the embroidery. Like, you can tell when it's like a patch that's been painted when it shouldn't be. It has to be embroidered, so they have to actually make you a fake now.
I'd be curious to know what they do for like newspapers and stuff like that now, because before they used to just print a bunch of
or they'd have an in joke where it would be a funny thing where it's a story from one of the. It'd be like, oh, the director was talking about the time he took his kid to the park, and they would just type that and put it on there.
Yeah.
Or or they would do things like put a bunch of random real stories, but famous ones from the wrong time because it didn't matter. Now they know people are going to pause and analyze every frame. So either they put something intentionally funny there, or they put something that was from the actual, like, you could look up the microfiche of the film and find the actual paper. Yeah. They had no security guards. But it's 1980, what, 2 or 3?
1982, I think, yeah. I mean, that's one thing I like about the 80s when it comes to horror movies. You could get one, you could, obviously, they were pumping out multiples a year, but for big tentpole franchises like Halloween, your Nightmare on Elm Street, your Friday the 13th, every year, almost every year, no more than every 2.
And they were all of decent quality. Whether or not you liked the film, the production quality was always good on those ones.
Yeah.
Friday the 29th. Nobody in the bar?
And there's the original.
Okay, so this is supposed to be the real world, and then Halloween is a fake franchise within the real world? What an ugly downstairs bar. Oh, it's not a downstairs. It's just a lower ceiling. Is he a widower? Was that the nanny that was with his kids?
I think that was his wife, but I don't know whether they're together. I don't know.
Because she already got the mask. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Because she sounded different, too. She sounded like she might have been a maid. She also dressed like 30 years earlier.
Did my father say anything to you the night he died?
Yeah. Said tell Ellie I love her.
Make up some random shit.
Jesus.
Somebody's in a hurry outside.
Live on a busy road, hear all sorts of stupid shit.
I suppose you shop in a mall like everybody else until the last 5 years.
Well, yeah, because think back to Dawn of the Dead, which came out in '77. They sounded impressed, like, oh, it must be one of those big indoor malls.
Well, 74 to 78 is when most of them started to open. Mm-hmm. Scarborough Town Center, Eaton Center might have been around, but it was a very rare thing for a multi-story mall indoors. It was like boutique places in like New York, Toronto, Sydney would have one mall.
Yeah,
And
we
then
had one in my hometown, and I remember
But
it
you
was a
wouldn't-
big deal when it opened in the '80s.
Yeah, I was going to say, before that, you wouldn't have had one.
Nope, we
would-
had big department stores and grocery stores.
And you would have had strip malls.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a reference to something, Santa Mira. I want to say that's or I've heard it referenced in other movies.
Maybe, I have no idea.
Yeah, like I know I've heard that name before. I know it's referenced in something else. Because that's sort of like a wink and a nod to John Carpenter.
My father just died, but I'm dolled up with all the makeup in the world. I'm not crying or sad.
Well, of course, they have to make the heroine look cool. Of course, it's Miller time.
Because he's a doctor.
Of course, he's got a drink.
Pretty sure that car in the front's going to blow up if they just tap the back of it. So they just left the store open? He died. They just left the store open. Anybody can walk in and steal stuff?
I guess so.
There's literally nobody there.
The green really pops here.
And looks natural. It doesn't look overblown or oversaturated. Big deal with 4K is making out all the details on the trees and all this stuff.
One of the best 4K discs that I've seen recently, I've actually just reviewed it. You've probably already heard it on Alex's show by now. I reviewed In the Heights, which is a Warner Brothers musical. And it's very urban, happens in New York. The colors, how much that movie pops. It's kind of impressive. Obviously, that was filmed fairly recently, whereas this was filmed in the 80s. Yeah, you're right. It seems natural, like even the green on that guy's hat.
Like if you were seeing a really good print in theaters.
Yeah.
Oh, Santa Mira, that's the city.
Yeah, I know. I've heard it referenced in other horror movies before.
You're all doomed, doomed.
Every movie needs their crazy Ralph.
And a poltergeist man in black. Hi. Hello. Saw an episode of the TV show Reaper like this. And it turned out all the people...
That's a show I wish more people knew about.
It was amazing. Mm-hmm. And it turned out everybody was dead, and they were being controlled by like a Cthulhu creature that had reanimated their dead bodies using his tentacles. So
that's very Lovecraftian.
So you never saw them. They would enter and exit a building, but you never saw them walk out or walk. And then they realized they were gliding, and it wasn't that they were gliding; it's that their dead bodies were being propped up and moved around like puppets.
Oh Jesus!
And that show had the one guy. He did other stuff too. I forget who the girl was. She went on to other stuff too.
I know the devil was Ray Wise, which was RoboCop Nash.
Yeah, I think the girlfriend ended up being on. She's on the FBI show now, just called FBI. But the friend sidekick, I'll always remember. I'm forgetting his name now though. He was the dude. He's now on that New Amsterdam show as a psychologist. But I just remember him from Breaker High. He was the tubby friend that was like the dumb surfer friend of Ryan Gosling. Mm-hmm. I just remember there's an episode. He's like, he wants to eat burritos, but he's got to learn to respect burritos. And I don't remember much else except before you eat the burrito, you must respect the burrito. It's probably on YouTube. Breaker High, one of the unsung, forgotten
Canadian shows.
Well, yeah, it aired in the States too, but Canadian.
That and Student Bodies.
Teen sitcom. Student Bodies, I feel, is more popular up here, and I feel Breaker High was just sort of forgotten altogether. Bunch of teenagers that are the kids of all the people that run the cruise ship, going to high school together privately on the ship, and they travel the world. And I guess it was Tyler Labine. That's the guy's name. He, I guess, sort of got TV famous, and then Ryan Gosling got, crazy famous.
Yeah. And then one of the guys from that show is now like a weather personality on CTV now.
I think you're right.
Ross something.
No, you're thinking Student Bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ross Hall. He was on Are You Afraid of the Dark as well.
Yeah, he graduated from that, then was on the Weather Network for a long time. Now he's like some national broadcaster.
Yeah.
I think he's on CTV.
Whenever I would mention Ryan Gosling to friends and people I work with, they'd be like, especially the girls, they'd be like, "Oh, The Notebook."
But so yeah, that's The Notebook
with Rachel McAdams, and I'd be like, "Yeah, I know, she's sweet." And they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Because I had lunch with her." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" It's because she was friends with the manager at my Best Buy. They grew up as childhood neighbors. Mm-hmm. So when she was done filming a movie, she was up here visiting the family. She came in to meet him, and I was having my lunch break in the back room. So it was like 2006 or 2007, and she comes into the break room. I'm like, "Oh, first I'm like, is it a new employee?" No, and I'm like, "It's Rachel McAdams."
Oh,
so I shared my Subway sub with her, and we watched some DVDs of whatever was on in the back break room, and people were so pissed and jealous because she gets up and leaves with them, and then I go out there like, "Did you see Rachel McAdams was in the store? Can you believe it? Can you believe it?" Because it's only a few years after The Notebook, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I had lunch with her. She's nice. We laughed watching some TV, and she was just happy to take a break from filming." Most
movie stars are just really down there.
It's like, would she remember me? No, not necessarily. But she would remember the store and everything. But I just find it funny that all these girls were freaking out. "Oh my God, what do you mean you did not have lunch?" And then we had our store meeting like that Sunday after that. Mm-hmm. And the GM's like, "So Alex's girlfriend says hi." And they're like, "What?" Like, Rachel says hi. Just a joke. And because they had obviously talked. And I just thought that was hilarious. It's like, yeah, my celebrity encounters have all been random and strange.
Yeah, my strangest celebrity encounter was, I think, pushing Christopher Lambert out of the way to go to the bathroom in LAX. I really had to pee.
There can be only one person to the bathroom.
Exactly. Get the fuck out of my way, Highlander.
So I technically had a date lunch with Rachel McAdams. You got in a fight with the Highlander over the bathroom. I didn't know who Kim Mitchell was and made fun of him in front of him. And then I was eating Harvey's at a table across from Mike Bullard from Open Mic with Mike Bullard, the stand-up comedian and TV show host.
My father just died. Let's make out, please.
Yes.
This does not compute.
This is so
hokey.
And you'd be like, "It's written by," dude, it's like, it's probably written by Deborah Hill, which is more funny than anything.
Creepy.
Even though he didn't make this is getting very They Live vibes, eh? Like the subliminal messaging. Mm-hmm. Kitty cat.
Time to come in. Not gonna lie, my old hometown that I'm from, you swear to God they'd roll up the sidewalks at like 6 p.m. That place was a ghost town.
Dude,
past like 8 o'clock.
When we were living in Woodstock in the 90s, everything on a Sunday closed at 5.
Yep.
Buses didn't run after 5 p.m.
It was weird. I remember growing up, there was a vote on city council to should stores allow shopping on Sundays. That was a big deal in my hometown.
It was still very Catholic in Canada for a long time. I know it was like gas stations were allowed to be open because they were a necessity.
Mm-hmm. And grocery stores, I think.
I don't even think pharmacies were open, not like Shoppers at the time. It was IGA and all that. I think it was restaurants on Sundays, but even for a long time, it was only Chinese restaurants that would deliver on a Sunday.
Yep. Or pizza places.
Which is why a lot of times pizza places and Chinese places were closed Mondays because they had
they needed a day off.
Well, and it used to be a store was told to have a day off. You had to have Sunday off. But if you were considered a necessity, you obviously like 7-Eleven could stay open, or a restaurant, or even a barbershop. You could get your haircut on a Sunday before church. And that was why it was, I think, Mondays or Tuesdays, the barbershops were always closed. I ain't got no diseases. You mind if I have a drink? This movie could use more Bruce Campbell. Little hooch from a pooch.
Oh, boy.
God, I love My Name is Bruce.
I've only ever seen that once.
It's where he feeds his dog whiskey.
That I don't remember.
He goes,
I saw it once.
a little bit for me, a little bit for you, a little hooch from a pooch. And then he gets drunk with his dog.
Oh, God.
I've seen this dude before. So is that guy the town homeless?
Or at least the town crazy.
The town crazy who's not actually crazy. Oh, is the message they're trying to give, because he's a nonconformist, he's not a consumerist, he's not part of their system, that's why he's not affected?
Maybe, actually, like, There's so much I want to tell you, but it's better if you...
I know that the masks kill people because they obviously said that here.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've seen Goosebumps. I know the haunted mask, which was, now that I see this, quite obviously inspired R.L. Stine.
Yeah.
And he just made it more palatable for children. To this day, I'll say that some of his work was, while you could say it's repetitive, with a certain formula, there's some pretty inventive crap in R.L. Stine's books, especially when you're considering his target audience is 8-year-olds.
Yeah, to make horror for children is remarkably hard.
It's basically him and Bruce Coville that wrote well enough. You know, what was it? My Teacher's an Alien. All that was like fantasy stuff. But he also did like, was it Secret Chamber? What was it called? A couple other things. Like writing horror for kids in the 80s and 90s and making it good enough that parents were okay reading it with their kids. Mm-hmm. Not easy to do. So it's kind of amazing overall. So, what is he doing here?
I think one of the things that I like about Carpenter stuff is I like how the scares genuinely, they're cheesy, but they don't feel overblown, if that makes any sense. Like, you kind of get what I mean. Like, they build up the suspense, and then when it hits you, it's bang.
Even in The Thing, though, like where it was gruesome, there would be goofy moments. That was okay. Okay, guy who looks awful lot like what's this? William H. Macy.
Could be like his dad, sort of thing.
William H. Macy, who's also somehow related to what's his name? The environmentalist guy.
Ed Bigley Jr.?
Yes.
All I remember is, I want to say it was The Simpsons, and they're like, oh, I've got this bicycle powered by my own sense of self-satisfaction. Which I always thought that was a tremendously funny gag. Again, I was always so impressed with the craftsmanship on those masks. Yeah, they look like $5 Halloween masks, but there's something about them that is very iconic of the 80s. Like, when I grew up, I can't remember who made them, but they'd always be like, because you're a 90s kid, more or less.
Yeah. 80s kid born, but really came to my own in the 90s.
Your idea of a Halloween costume was like, here's a garbage bag with a graphic on it.
We were never like that. My mom made all my costumes.
Yeah, like some of your pictures, like from you growing up, I'm very jealous.
My mom would go to thrift stores, pick up a bunch of old clothes, and make stuff. Like I was Count Dracula with a homemade cape, and oh, boobs, boob alert, and what else was I? Grim Reaper, and then she taught me how to make my own. So I was grade 7. I was an FBI agent that was caught by the mob. So
You had like cement shoes.
I had a fake knife stuck into me. I had it was an old suit I tore up, blood all over it, bullet holes in the suit, and my tie. We took apart a coat hanger and strung it through it and made the tie stick straight up out of it and made it look like I was being hung from my tie.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
I'll see if we have. My mom will have pictures of that. And I won a costume contest at school. They're like, "Who made that for you?" I'm like, "I made that for me." And my teacher was like, "You are one disturbed individual and creative."
You had one Halloween costume where you dressed up as like Middle Eastern kind of royalty.
Oh, when I was the Sheik.
Yeah, that looked really
My
good.
mom made that. That's the last time I dressed up like that in high school. It's grade 10, and I wanted to go trick-or-treating. I'm like, I'm going trick-or-treating. And she's like, you think they're going to give you candy? Because I was already a big dude then and tall.
Yeah.
And everybody loved the costume, so I got candy.
Yeah, like I loved your attention to detail on it.
Attention to detail. I walked to school dressed in that and like stand at the intersections waiting for the lights to change and pull up my sword and do dances and stuff. Probably not the most politically correct thing now, but not thinking about it when I'm 15, 16. I had every car stopping, honking, waving, smiling, thinking it was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird how the cultural appropriation of costumes has changed. Like, especially with me being First Nations, and even as recently as this year, Value Village had a native princess costume. But I think with you, because you weren't meaning to be respectful, it's one of those things. Obviously, times change, cultures change.
Yeah, no, it was never, ever, my intent was not to be that. My intent was just be immersed in the character I was playing.
Yeah, like, some people look cool. Like, I remember there was a conversation I had years ago, because one of my favorite Green Lanterns is Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart's a black man, and obviously you can't do what you would think you would do.
You might be able to.
But yeah, but the original point I was trying to make, like, certain Halloween mask companies would really go the extra mile to make sure their sculpts are good. I know one company, Rubies, did a lot of Star Wars masks, and they do a lot of typical masks as well. And you'll get some really good sculpts. Some of them are a little bit off, like some of the dimensions will be off, especially when it comes to Star Wars stuff. But for Halloween-y goofy shit like the witch, the ghost, or the pumpkin or whatever, they look good.
Oh, wait. I did dress up 2 more times. After I graduated high school and I went and was working at Best Buy, I put on a apron costume type thing that made me look like...
Leatherface?
No, like a German...
Beer Baron?
Beer maiden. So it has like the dirndl and everything. And then my mom found a blonde wig she made into ponytails or pigtails. Mm-hmm. And I sat for 25 minutes and let my mom do my makeup. She's like, I always wanted a daughter. And I was like, what? She's like, can I do your makeup? And I said, yes. And I said, but I'm keeping the beard. And she's like, okay, I don't care. So she put it on my makeup, and I went and worked in customer service the whole day. And you know what I mean? Like, now some people might go, oh, maybe that's... No, I was just like, what do you want to do for Halloween? I'm like, can I use the Heidi costume? And she's like, yeah. So I went to work, and every one of the girls that work with me at customer service, they're like, oh, that's funny. And then they would take a second, look at me like, who did your makeup? Oh, shit.
Surprising, eh?
And I just remember laughing because every one of the girls, they would take a look like, who did your makeup? You didn't do that yourself. That's too good. And I'm like, my mom did my makeup. And then I had to, oh my God, ew.
Oh, I love the special effects in this.
This is cool. Ew.
And now the mystery deepens.
Give us a kiss. Ew.
Oh, I never saw the detail before that. That's amazing.
That's gross. But yeah, I remember leaving work and I had to give my mom's phone number to a couple of the girls because they wanted makeup tips. And my mom was so proud. And then I didn't dress up again for many years. And when I was working at my last job before I had to go on disability, I dressed up as Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner. I went to naked butt. I went to a medieval store and purchased actual chainmail headset and cut it into the right shape, bought the right shirt and everything, and I was Big Papa Pump.
I was my first big Halloween costume. I remember my mother got me coveralls, and I was Jason from Friday the 13th Part 6. I even had the little throwing daggers, and I had this big knife covered in blood. I didn't have the greatest Jason mask because the options back then were just remarkably limited. Then in college was the next time I really dressed up. I was Luke Skywalker from Return of the Jedi because I had my Force FX lightsabers. So I went to the pub. I had the black glove on to show Luke's damaged hand. And when they had the costume contest, I just came out on stage, had the Star Wars theme come out, and then at a dramatically appropriate moment, I ignited my saber. Do you recognize him?
Dick, you're fired. My mom had to stop dressing up for Halloween because she scared a girl so bad one time.
Yeah.
She would. My mom used to put like fake nose on, green makeup. She made herself a witch, and she would answer the door. And there's this little 4-year-old girl that got so scared she almost peed her pants, and my mom was so, oh my God! And she went, "It's okay, it's okay." I had to come to the door. I hadn't been trick or treating that night. I went, "Don't worry, she's not a scary witch. She's a good witch." And the little girl goes, like Glenda, the good witch from
Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. And why is she ugly? And my mom thought it was the best compliment ever that she put on so much makeup. And then, the father had to come up and get the candy. And after that, my mom was like, she goes, if I'm going to dress up, she dressed up, but she wouldn't do the face anymore. Because she had like the full green makeup, the hook nose with the witch thing. And she even darkened one of her teeth and everything. And it was a little too much.
There was, I think I've told the story on the podcast a few times. But there was a teacher in, I think, grade 5 or 6, and she was our French teacher. She was subbing for a few weeks. I can't remember her name. But she dressed up like your mom did with the full green makeup, the hook nose, the warts and everything. And I remember my class was so unbelievably mean to her or something that day. We did something terrible. And she almost cried.
That sucks.
And I was like, man, like I've always wanted to find her on some level if I ever ran into her today.
And just mention,
like, dude, I'm so sorry for everybody who was like that day.
There's always some stories about that. And then there were some teachers that somehow got away with being cool teachers that dressed up. Mm-hmm. Mr. Thompson, my grade 9 and 10 science teacher, he dressed up as a blue man from the Blue Man Group, and then he got the wrong paint.
So it didn't come off?
It took 2 weeks to come off, so he was a shade of blue. Every day you saw him, he was with a little less blue. He goes, I've been taking 10, 15-minute showers with a loofah for a week. He goes, my skin is so raw. And so he's like, for science today, we're going to learn about why certain makeup should be used and certain makeup shouldn't. He was supposed to be a agent he put on first, and then that stuff so that it would loosen up, and it went right into his pores.
Did you see that? His place is bugged.
Oh, yeah.
I love those old style of like tractors because that's virtually Optimus Prime. Exactly.
But yeah, I should bring in my yearbook because Mr. Thompson's in there as the Blue Man.
That's funny.
And I don't think he ever did.
I don't remember any of my high school teachers ever doing that at least where I'm from.
He had just gone to a Blue Man Group concert. Mm-hmm. So he's like, I'm going to be a Blue Man. And he bought theater paint, but then he's like, I bought the paint. And then his wife asked him after he put it on, so did you buy the loosening agent? And he's like, the what now?
The what?
And his wife was apparently killing herself laughing. They called the theater troupe, and they're like, he did what now? and they just said, that'll take a while. He had to wait till his skin naturally
grew
off.
Over it.
Yeah. But he came. It was right when the Pentium 3 logos were coming on TV. Like, do. And they'd have the Blue Man Group advertising it.
Yep, I remember those.
We walked into class, and he came out of the back room with the black turtleneck on and like a steel drum thing. He's like, do. And we're killing ourselves laughing. And then, the next day we see him after Halloween, and he's still blue. And he's like, it won't come off. And he goes, commence the laughing. And we laugh for like 10 minutes straight. I will always love that guy because he introduced me to The Big Lebowski. He's like, it's not an appropriate movie to watch, but it's a great movie. I rented it that weekend, watched it, killed myself laughing, came in, and he's like, I'm very glad that I was a positive influence. Just don't tell anybody I told you to watch that rated R movie.
I'm trying to remember when was the first time I got introduced to this movie. Because, like I was talking about during my intro to this podcast, Halloween 3 was always the weird movie you don't think of as a Michael Myers movie, and that's why people hated it. Even for years, I remember not liking this. Actually, there's a Lost Twig episode you will never hear where somebody who was of note reviewed this movie for us, and it wasn't until they started talking about it, I gave it another look during college, that I really started to appreciate the anthology style of movie and what this movie was. I think the biggest problem with this movie is if you took off the Halloween name and just called it Season of the Witch, I think it would have been more well received during its time.
Or just simply masks.
Yeah, or masks or something like that. I mean that's the problem when you attach an IP to something established. Like sometimes side stories work. Like for example, I think a really good example is WandaVision. And what do I mean by that? WandaVision she's a side Avenger and not everybody's favorite, but it wasn't until you gave that character a chance to shine that you did something fun that wasn't here's an Avengers movie or here's a movie dedicated to her. When you do a side story, you're either going to be really successful or it's going to suck.
Do you think this would have done better with a simple change instead of Halloween Season of the Witch if it was Sam Hain Season of the Witch?
I think you would get people mad that you called it Sam Hain. But if you just called it Season of the Witch, it evokes enough, it's spooky, scary sort of thing, that you would catch someone's attention. But the problem is during the 80s, you want to attach people with like, here's a name that makes money. Well, and with the direct-to-video market being so huge in the 80s, because we reviewed Vinegar Syndrome stuff and Vestron, etc., it would get lost in the shuffle. I mean, even like we saw, this was a major Universal release, and this movie did not do well.
Like, you know how there's John Carpenter's Halloween? He always called things John Carpenter's this, John Carpenter's that.
Because they're banking on his name.
Yeah, but it always was things that he directed. I'm wondering if this had been... They wanted to keep the anthology... If it had just said something like,
like I remember John Carpenter's Ghosts of Mars or like, John Carpenter's Vampires.
Like, what if it was John Carpenter's Halloweens, and then it had this? Like, if there was a very distinct thing saying
maybe Halloween Tales.
Yes, or a Season of the Witch, a Halloween story.
Yeah, that would have been fine. But the biggest problem is because you put Halloween and John Carpenter, who do you expect?
They put the 3 next to it.
Yes.
If it was, Season of the Witch, a Halloween tale, based on, actually no, not even. Well, I guess he did sort of write it, right? So instead of John Carpenter's Halloween or whatever, what if they just called it John Carpenter Presents?
Yes,
Halloween,
that would have worked.
John Carpenter Presents Halloween Season of the Witch.
Mm-hmm.
Because that, if it was Presents, it would make it seem more like he was the producer, which he was, right?
Yeah.
It was him and writing it, right? I think that was the mistake. It didn't have his name attached in the right way.
Yeah, and that's always a problem when you're dealing with a massive IP.
Because this is well put together.
Yeah, like I said, like it's a genuinely entertaining movie, and Tom Atkins is great in it, if a little subdued, but he's likable. The daughter of the man who was murdered, pretty good. Dan O'Hurley, I think that's his name.
Maybe. And like the Shamrock logo and all that, what if it peeled off and it just said OCP below it?
OZB is, turns out they're evil witches.
Or they showed their little metal trinkets, the one that had the laser beam in it,
yeah,
or whatever. I saw that and I'm like, I want that as a slammer for
your pogs.
For my pogs, man.
Actually, I wonder if someone has turned the Silver Shamrock logo into like, I don't know, like pins or that. It
Michael,
must have happened.
It's Alf. He's back in pog form.
You know what's weird? I was browsing Facebook Marketplace the other day. There's somebody selling like a shit ton of Pogs recently.
I have my Pog book in my storage locker, and that game that I reviewed that I really liked, but I didn't actually complete it all the way because it got difficult at the end and I forgot about it.
The one that came with the milk caps or whatever?
It came with Pogs, officially licensed Pogs. And that was, why am I drawing a blank? It was a time travel one on the Switch. And yeah, it came with like 6 Pogs, and it said licensed by the Pog company, and something else was coming with Pogs. I think it was some either some Kickstarted stuff, or it was a game or two on limited run games. Were coming with Pogs.
I seem to remember what you're talking about.
They're licensed by Pog and like have the Pogman logo. Mm-hmm. And I think Pogs were much more popular in Canada than the States.
Yeah, I seem to remember there being a big thing kind of growing up.
Because it's originally based on a Jamaican, milk cap thing, right? And I know that my dad was telling me that in Toronto when he was a kid in the 60s and 70s, collecting Pog caps was a thing. And then, but it wasn't a thing in the States. It was only in like the areas where they had a large Jamaican community.
Oh,
so like Kensington Market, parts of Toronto, Scarborough, the kids would have them, but they weren't like a game. It was just you collected them. And then when it came back in the 90s, my dad was like, really? And the early Pog caps from like the 60s and 70s were selling for crazy money back then.
Wow.
Because you just used to throw them out. They weren't even like baseball cards, right? They were just, you'd have to be a really special collector to collect them. But I kept all my Pogs. I think I've got almost an entire series of Reboot Pogs.
I remember the Spawn ones.
I have Spawn, Reboot, Disney. I've got a bunch of NHL ones. And I'm not talking caps. I'm not talking the no-name skull bullshit dollar store ones. I'm talking the real Pogs. The ones that have the staple through them.
Yep. I remember like the Slammers and all of them. I remember
Keenies.
Metal Slammers were a big deal.
And the razor blade ones.
Yep.
You can't use those or it's no keepsies.
Yep. And you couldn't do something that was known as like knife edging or whatever.
But you know what? Such a simple game. And I mean, it works. Kids were like, before Pokemon cards and all that, there was nobody on the fields. You were all on the cement. 300 or 400 kids at recess playing Pogs. Put them face down, stack a few up at a time, flip them over. Whoever flips the most wins. And if you played for keepsies, you always played with the crappy ones.
Yep. You know what's weird? I don't recall. I'm just kind of thinking back to this. I don't recall anybody in high school and really even in college sharing a love of the Halloween franchise. I don't think it was really until the Rob Zombie stuff hit that people started talking again.
I knew a kid that liked it. H2O was out when I was in like grade 7 or grade 8.
Yeah.
But it was... I had a couple friends that would watch the trifecta. They watched Friday, they would watch Halloween, and they would flip... Either they would watch Nightmare, or if they were going for a pure slasher, they would watch Black Christmas every
Which
year.
I've also never seen.
That is, I think, viewed as the first modern slasher, and that's a Canadian film. So like those 3 were considered like the first 3 real ones that hit big, that hit like all the hallmarks. And of those 3, Friday's the only one that holds up. And personally, there's scary moments in Halloween where it's like doodle-doo, he's in the background. But
one of the great things I love about Carpenter's stuff, and I notice this a lot in Halloween Kills, is how well Michael's lit or not lit.
Yes, that I will give. That there's more of a thriller thing there. I would say as far as for modern audiences, Friday probably holds up better.
Yes.
For the pacing, also the kills in the first movie. Kevin Bacon gets it through the throat.
I mean, like, even this movie, I would love to see remade. Because I think now that we are used to the anthology horror movie with the success of stuff like VHS or Trick or Treat, there was even something on Netflix. I can't remember what the fuck. Not Netflix. Maybe it was Tubi or something.
No, didn't they just do the one from... It wasn't R.L. Stein, was it? The one where it's like 1984 or 1994?
Oh, you mean American Horror Story?
No, the one that was like 3 movies on Netflix.
Oh, Fear Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are really well
R.L.
done.
Stein, right? Those were 3 movies
Yep.
over the course of, 3 or 4 days they released them?
Yep. No, 3 or 4 weeks. You got a movie a week for a month.
And that was last year, right?
This year.
Was it this year?
Yep.
That's the kind of do that. License something, and Fear Street was like the teen series that he wrote.
Yes.
So it's a little more risque.
Yeah, like I think Halloween, I mean, obviously they're banking on Halloween Kills, or Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends to be the big trilogy, and the people behind those, like, I like McBride. I like what was brought to the table. Like, I don't dislike any of them. I got problems with Halloween Kills. That's probably because I'm a little too into the lore, but not so much with what they changed with the original Halloween series, where there was the cult of the thorn and all that, which we actually interviewed that director
It's
a number
just
of years
pagan
ago.
stuff, right? Like,
Yeah.
I read about it, and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, and it turns out it's like an ancient curse that was passed. It's weird.
I look at it, and I'm like, so as basically they're mixing Friday and Nightmare.
Yeah. Whereas this one is more sci-fi horror, which, you know, there's a computer chip in a thing that fires lasers.
And I mean, those masks look good for the time period, but they wouldn't fly today.
I think they would flag among a certain subset, but you wouldn't see them mass market
Halloween
Walmart.
Value Village edition.
Yeah, but
Spirit of Halloween edition.
see, that's the thing, though. I mean, Halloween costumes, like I said, outside of like Spirit Halloween, it's hard to find really, really good stuff.
Well, you can go to an actual novelty costume store.
Yeah, just not like you find those in the larger cities. If you're in a smaller town like us, Spirit Halloween's where you're.
No, I
where
was going
you
to say
go.
Waterloo has one that's an all-year
Wow.
costume and magic shop type thing. Mm-hmm. I think they might also sell weed now. Who knows? But they were like where you would go if you wanted to get Ren Fair stuff, or you wanted to
that's
get
cool.
custom stuff. But they also did costumes. So like if you wanted to get like a Dracula, it's like I'd like to look like Dracula. I want to look like 1972 movie Dracula. They could make that costume for you there.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, it's like I want to look like Christopher Lee's Dracula, and they'll be like, which movie?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the kind of place you can go.
Which Hammer horror film are you looking at?
Yeah, and that's what you get when you have somebody who is like a seamstress that works there, and they'll sell off the shelf stuff too. But if you need a custom thing done, they'll tailor it for you. I think I've seen this lady in Drag Me to Hell. Well, that's weird. This is very 1800s automaton.
Clockwork. Yeah.
Like Hellboy.
Yes, the guy who would like used to wind himself
He's
up.
full of sand.
I thought that guy was such a cool design.
I don't know what he's called, but I always called him the Clockwork
Something
Nazi.
Toten or something.
Yeah, it's based on the I forget, was it Milieu or Jules Verne's idea of an automaton man or something?
Mm-hmm.
But I just called him the Clockwork Nazi because it sounded cool.
And it's hard to believe that the guy who played Abe Sapien in that movie is Saru on Star Trek Discovery
He's
now.
in so many things.
He's such a good actor, too. I hope we see more Tom Atkins before he dies.
Well, that's not good. We should just get Tom Atkins, Tom Skerritt, Tom Selleck to do the 3 Toms together, because all the guys in the 70s and 80s that had the same mustache.
Yes. As like a buddy cop picture.
And then have a 4th person that's just Tom Arnold that they don't want him around.
Tom Arnold gets to be the bad guy.
Tom Arnold's their driver.
Yes. Maybe they can be involved in our Lou Gossett Junior Ninja project we talked about a couple
Yes.
shows ago.
No, it's the 3 Toms, and they're there paying tribute because their friend was murdered. And then when they show pictures of their friend, it's Burt Reynolds, the king of that mustache, right? But I would totally watch a 3 Toms movie, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
That's saying if Tom Skerritt's still here. Well, Atkins is 85.
Yeah,
That
so
might-
we better
that
get
might-
on it.
That may not be happening.
I think even he's still alive, Dan O'Hurley.
I doubt that.
Look it up. I'm pretty sure or at least he survived until relatively recently. I'm not, if I'm not mistaken.
Tom Skerritt.
The character's name is Cochran. If you're going
Skerritt's
to IMDb.
88.
Yep.
That might not be.
He still does stuff, I think, though.
Selleck's still on Blue Bloods, which I watch all the time. He's 76, so he's the youngin' of the group. I mean, what if they made a movie where it's some murderers killing famous Toms? And they're like, somebody called Tom Arnold. And they're like, he's still going to be fine. And it's just him just partying out with people. They're like...
The movie starts out with a really strong opening kill of, like, someone kills Tom Cruise on, like, the set of Mission Impossible 20 or whatever.
Yeah. And they start going through all the Toms, and it's... and they start going through the old list of people, and they're like, what about Tom Arnold? Nobody cares, so he's just fine. Nobody even bothers. But they're like, oh my God, somebody's got to stop this. So they have to get Tom Hardy, the youngest, strongest Tom. Isn't the Spider-Man a Tom as well?
Tom Holland, yeah.
He's the youngest. They got to worry. They got to worry about the youngest Tom and the oldest Toms. So it's Tom Holland and Tom Hardy saving all the old Toms. Because if they can get to Cruise, they can get to anybody. Oh, that's a terrible idea for a movie. So Uwe Boll would have made it if that German tax loop hadn't been filled.
I never realized how in weirdly places this movie's paced.
It is. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow.
Yeah, because we're coming into the final act now. And there's the big reveal. Piece of Stonehenge. Which is such an interesting idea. Like, I've never thought of technology and magic blending before Shadowrun.
Do you think this is where they got the idea for the Druidic thing for the next films?
I would wonder.
If that was just the concept they went with?
I mean, I'm kind of glad, like, thematically it works.
Yeah, Tom Harley, he died 16 years ago.
Okay.
Because he was born in 1919. He would have been over 100.
Holy shit. Good career, though.
You know what, though?
Memorable roles.
Between this film and RoboCop, he got old. He aged a fair bit in that 5-year span or so. Dick?
You're fired!
I'm very disappointed in you.
You called this a glitch!
Yeah. I love that he's evil, but he wasn't pure evil. He was upset that somebody died. He was upset that things... He wants his profits at any cost, but he also isn't a psychopath.
Yeah.
Whereas everybody
He's
else...
a capitalist.
Everybody else that works for him is mostly a psychopath. Except maybe the Dick's assistant. He's not really a psychopath.
Yeah, Bob Morton with Security Concepts.
Not Bob Morton, the black dude.
Oh, Rosewood or Rosemount or
he
something.
He makes it through all 3 films,
Yep.
doesn't he?
But he's a scumbag by the 3rd one.
Yeah, whereas the first 2 he's not.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. He was naive, but a nice guy.
He's the voice of reason who gets stomped on, and I guess that changes him.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody in OCP other than him that was considered even remotely normal, except the scientist lady that would repair him.
Dr. Lazarus, yeah.
Everybody
little
else
bit
was kind of a dick.
Little bit on the nose there with the name, but hey.
I mean, obvious, yeah. Well, I mean, also Ed Neumeyer is not like the most brilliant writer, but you got Paul Verhoeven. He's like, oh, he's a brilliant. He's a Lazarus. He's like the Lazarus Pit. Whenever I picture him talking like that, and then talking about Starship Troopers, where he's just like, where he's like, you ever see him do the behind the scenes where he's trying to get all those terrible actors to actually emote?
Yeah.
So, because they're all green screen things, he pretends that he's the bugs, and he would run at them with his arms open wide and clenching them together over and over again, waving his arms, going, and that's how he scared them all into getting the right reactions. The madman. And when he says in his commentary that he purposely hired bad actors, and they're like, he's like, isn't that disparaging to your actors? He's like, no, I wanted terrible actors that looked pretty. So it's like, that's so mean.
This scene is probably one of my favorites out of the end.
I'm assuming this is going to end poorly.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite scenes from any 1980s movie, simply because when I saw this for the first time in the 90s, did not see this coming. And because at that time, the internet was still very, very, very young. If you wanted horror movie stuff, you had to look in the library, which I remember certain books would have stills from horrors, or there was like Fangoria or like Starlog.
Yeah. And maybe if you were lucky, you'd get one of Leonard Maltin's books that wasn't just like a 2-second blurb. It would be like a
full, like, here's half a page right up
on all the horror movies of the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even stress enough how important Leonard Maltin's books were to me before internet was a regular thing at my house.
Mm-hmm.
You would buy one of his books so you'd know what to rent. Because you'd read a blurb and you go, that's what we're going to rent today.
And this, I think, would work really well now. And you'll see what I mean in about 30 seconds here. I know exactly how I would update this.
Whoa.
And again, one of the only times I can think in a movie where they go after a kid.
You know what they would do now, right? It would melt the kid's head and it would just ooze out everywhere.
What I think they should do is use
they're locusts.
Mobile phones. And, hey, kids, if you want to win the big giveaway, you have to be on your phone at 9 p.m.
It would be done through TikTok.
Yeah, it would be TikTok or Twitter or Facebook.
There's actually an episode of Evil, which you're going to catch up on.
Yeah, that show's fucking great, by the way.
Where they show Instagram influencers using subliminal messaging to actually haunt and corrupt people with demons.
Yeah.
Your body's not good. Your body's not good. Do our makeup. Here's our routine. And it's actually playing a signal at a frequency that only children can hear. And once you hit puberty, your ears don't hear that high frequency anymore. So it only affects people that are preteens. And that was their explanation for, in the show, why there's so many teen suicides.
Oh, wow.
Like, that's dark, but it's also a brilliant way of doing it. Like, subliminal messaging is evil. Well, that was messed up.
I love the look on his face here.
It's like this look of, what can I do? I can't do nothing.
Like, oh, God. You have a huge multinational corporation which is broadcasting to millions of homes around America.
Is there reasoning for it? Anything? They're being controlled by aliens?
No. They just don't like the fact that Halloween's been commercialized. You've taken away the true meaning.
So it's not, nowadays it would be like, there's not enough food in the world to go around, so it's a population control.
So it's a Thanos problem. Yeah, with this, he's like, back in my whatever, he's like, the streets used to run red with blood of children. The true meaning of Sam Hain has been lost, and blah, 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 blah.
Nice.
See, those are those cheap costumes I'm talking about.
T-shirt. Do you think that's a John Landis reference?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Because he had just made Werewolf.
Yep.
And there was that...
And they're all friends.
Well, they were all interviewed at the time when they were... It was him, Carpenter, Cronenberg, and Landis, for how gruesome their late 70s, early 80s movies were, specifically Scanners, Videodrome, The Thing, and like I would say almost freakier than all of those was probably American Werewolf, because the transformation looked like it hurt.
Yeah, it looked really good. I wish I could remember the special effects are. I keep wanting to say Beekler. Trailer shot, poster shot.
I was going to say, I think, didn't they... I might be wrong, but I think The Thing used the same person that did Videodrome.
I could believe it. And the thing is, with this movie, the special effects are very minimal in terms of how often they show up, but when they do, you remember them.
Is this going to be like one of the Carpenter movies where it ends with everybody dying? Prince of Darkness ends with the world's probably going to end.
I love that movie. That's an underappreciated one of his.
They live. Fuck it. He blows it up, but they're probably still going to kill everybody. He just stopped the mothership from happening soon. What else?
You've only delayed the inevitable.
Yeah, The Thing. They're both... well, no, they're not both a thing because you stay on... The Thing would try to protect itself, and it would know if another thing was the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're left to think that Keith David is probably a thing, but it's
They
very
don't know.
it's very likely that it's very likely neither of them are.
Yeah, and they can't take the risk.
Neither can take the risk, and they're going to die there together. And I also loved what was the other one he did? I know he didn't write it, but he did some script doctoring for In the Mouth of Madness.
Yes, that's another great one.
Sam, it's one of the few like medium budget Lovecraft
Sam Neill movies too.
Well, Lovecraft ones, right? Like
Yeah.
because
Lovecraft stuff is very hard to do and have it be adapted.
isn't it
well.
basically From Beyond and that are the only ones that had practical effects?
Necronomicon, which came out in '93 by Ronnie Yu, and
So
Dagon, I don't remember.
So it's
I've
like
never
3
seen
or 4 maybe ever that even had decent effects.
it. Color Out of Space, but that was like last year, or the year before last, with Nick Cage.
I'm surprised nobody has tried to obtain the rights. Like, why hasn't Universal said our next thing is going to be H.P. Lovecraft?
I think it's because Lovecraft himself was problematic. He's known as a racist, but
that doesn't
you
mean
look
that
at the success of Lovecraft Country from HBO.
I was going to say, so I guess maybe Warner.
Yeah, maybe Warner could take a stab at it.
Oh, Jesus. No. Oh, I've seen this in movies before.
Oh, not going to end well for you, lady.
She's going to get a drilling. Ha 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 ha. Oh, no. If this was Trauma, we would have seen the head explode.
Or if this was like Slumber Party Massacre. With his gigantic, like, 30-foot drill or whatever.
Sleepaway Camp. She was a dude. I mean, that like it's. Say what you will about maybe being hokey. That is a freaky pose at the end.
The thing I liked about Sleepaway Camp is because you never saw it coming. And I remember they actually made a joke about it on Robot Chicken in one of its very early seasons, where they had like the Scooby Gang investigating the camp. And when they reveal, it's Angela, and the little robot chicken dude pops up in the corner and says, here's a reference 30 of you might get.
Because, yeah, it was a nothing film until the internet got a hold of it.
Yeah, and when they tried to complete the fourth one in like the early 2000s, and then the Shout Factory re-releases, which are stupidly expensive.
Well, it was originally released by one of those DVD companies that did like Hard Ticket to Hawaii, where they were like $50 each.
Yeah. And then there was like a Sleepaway Camp box set that was called the Survival Kit. See, here's what he's talking about, the reason why he's doing it.
And from the rubble and ashes, we will build Delta City.
See, he plays a great villain.
Dick, you're fire. Like every time I hear that in my head, I'm just waiting for the music to kick in. Basil Polidoris, another guy who doesn't get enough.
Yeah, him
credit.
and Brad Fiedel are some of my favorite composers from the
Especially
80s.
for incorporating not just the horn section, but like the sound of metal clanging. Brad Fiedel obviously was the Terminator one, right?
Yes.
And then Basil Polidoris, RoboCop, and Starship Troopers.
Yeah. And there's the original Halloween. That's great.
I guess they weren't going to do Halloween 2 because that wasn't as famous, but it was also so new. It might have not had a VHS release yet.
I don't know whether it did well or not either.
I think it did. Because Carpenter didn't return to direct it, but he did write that one completely himself. Mm-hmm. So that he wrote it as if he was going to direct it.
Yeah. And it had the ending that he wanted, where Loomis and Michael die in the hospital explosion.
Talk about doing as much as you can with what little hair you have.
Mm-hmm.
All these computers. We're using technology and the Stonehenge to make... How are the bugs coming? Are they being transmutated out of the stone? Because they're using the stone itself to make the plaster, I guess. Or the rubber for the masks, or the silicone or whatever. That's actually a pretty good skull mask.
Mm-hmm.
I think they covered up all the signs because those look a little bit like Sony Trinitron monitors to me. Or the Sony reference monitors.
They kind of remind me of like those Commodore 64 monitors, you know what I mean?
The Commodore ones were like a brownie color, but also, you're right, if it was a UK monitor, for sure, I think that could have either been a Philips or a...
Hell of a shot.
I haven't heard Thrill Me yet. So maybe it's only in the
Night
Fog
of the Creeps and
the
the
Fog.
Fog. It's always the vent. Be inventive. Be
That
creative.
mask is creepy up in the corner.
I know, eh?
43% of Americans watching.
Millions
So,
dead.
like 100 million people dead at the time. And that's only people they sold to in the States.
Yeah.
Because this ain't no mask manufactured in China. There's a mask manufactured in the States going to China.
Like, again, like if they were to update this for modern audiences, imagine if it was a signal that went through your like cell phone. If it went through like an app, like, hey, if your phone dings at 9 o'clock, you've won. And they take you out via cell signal. Like I said, I think this movie is ripe for remake. And I'd be totally fine with it.
Have him play that character.
Or the homeless guy or whoever who says, hey, there's something wrong in this
Because
town.
he's 83.
Yeah, just give him a small role he can film in 2 days and get him off the set.
It's like I know they're not going to do it, but if they ever remade Back to the Future or found a way, like, let's say...
Is that Brian Thompson?
No.
Okay.
Not thick enough. If they found a way, let's say it's like, oh, Marty's daughter or whatever is going to use the time machine, yada, yada, and they were ever to do it again, they should get Michael J. Fox to wear a bunch of dirty makeup and a bunch of layers of clothes, and he should be the crazy drunk driver's homeless guy that sits in the park bench. Mm-hmm. You could have a cameo with him without having to have him act, because if his Parkinson's is too much.
Or maybe have him become the new mayor of Hill Valley. It's like, hey, elect Mayor Marty McFly.
Or
As opposed to Mayor Goldie or something.
oh, how great would it be if he's the principal?
Yeah, as like the new version of Strickland.
He's become the principal of the school. Slackers. Or do you get Billy Zane to play the principal of the school? Because Billy Zane wasn't he Shades? He was. Biff.
I think he might have been, yeah.
I think he was Biff's.
Lieutenant or whatever.
Yeah. You know it's an old movie when there's obviously no computers there, even though they would have had computers, but there's no computers there. It's not a rotary phone; it's a push-button phone.
And you have to dial out via the trunk
But
system.
it's a little desk with a bunch of pencils and paper.
Yep.
And it's before the digital dialing systems, so he didn't have to press 209 and then put in your code in. It was just pick up, dial 9 for an outside line. Like, that was the standard number you had to press for every outside line back then.
Mm-hmm.
So, is the idea why all these guys are white dudes? It's because they're all Celtic druids.
I think so. And then obviously the guys in suit are like automatons of some type.
So it's like the Irish, crazy Celtic people are killing everybody. That's the idea.
I think so.
And the Scots are watching this movie, going, "Damn it, we've been telling everybody for hundreds of years
Yeah.
you can't trust the goddamn Irish because of this." Great drinking buddies, but we can't trust them because they're the druids. They'll get you.
Unless they're in D&D, in which case they're like superheroes.
I'm just picturing Willie from Simpsons. Willie'll save you, and he gets hit with an axe. Oh, I'm bad at this. Do not touch Willie. Good advice. It's kind of slow. Like, this is weird. The pacing's a little weird here.
Yeah, it's slow, but it works.
Yeah, it's deliberate, but it's not, like, boring. But you figure for the climactic battle, it would already be happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an overly long running time either, so maybe they had to pad it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
This would have made for a perfect 70-minute TV movie.
Yeah, I was about to say, this could work well as a TV movie, especially if it had a higher budget for, like, hey, this is going to be... Like, if you told me AMC was going to remake this, or HBO Max, but I guess because it's Universal, it would be like, what, Peacock, I guess?
What if it was 65 minutes and put into a 1.5-hour time slot on Halloween?
Yeah.
You could have cut away a lot of trimmed the fat. You didn't need to have the sex scene where he's sucking on her boobs.
Yeah.
Which is weird to see even an R-rated movie. It's like, they're having sex, but it's just boob sucking scene.
Yeah, it's like, here's sexuality for the sake of sexuality.
It seemed like they weren't uncomfortable, but they were like, that's 2 minutes that could have been excised.
Yeah. Because that's like another kill that's showing how much the town is entrenched in being a part of this evil conspiracy plan thing.
Stonehenge. Da-da-da-da. I'm thinking of Spinal Tap now. It's making me want a Shamrock Shake more than anything. Look at the big computer mainframe. Boop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop. Is he playing it for them to make their heads explode? All the tape drives. Well, I was hoping he was going to try to run around and then like throw masks on them to kill them. Oh, is he going to get lasered to death? All those pogs.
I don't remember this.
Shoo, 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 laser beams. Well, yeah, he fucked them right up. All them fireworks. Oh.
Killed all the robots.
So only one of them is human. Or maybe he's not human either. That's when he realized the real money's not in masks. It's in police force. Oh, okay. So it's supposed to be like a
Summoning circle?
Yeah, druidic runic circle. Is it mad at them now? What in the actual fuck is happening?
Upset the natural balance or set it off early.
Before it aired on TV.
That's so weird.
He either got vaporized or brought to the other plane of existence. I'm going to go with vaporized.
Mm-hmm. Now Silver Shamrock is in
This
flames.
looks so amazingly fake.
But I kind of like it, though. But
I do.
It's just a weird matte painting.
I'm pretty sure this is the exact same background for the Trauma intro. It just doesn't have the Twin Towers in it. You know, Trauma Team Video? That's the same background.
Back when not all radios were Sirius satellite.
I'm pretty sure that was just an AM radio. Is it?
No,
Or is it AM?
because it's got the FM frequencies up top.
Oh, I did see that on top. You're right. Thought for a second it might have been shortwave as well. So are we going to get a fake out thing where his kids come out in their masks and scream at him and he freaks out? Oh, no. She's been turned. Is she not the real person? Is she an automaton now?
I don't remember.
Seatbelt, bitch. Come on. Neither of them wearing their seatbelts. And this car would have had a seatbelt.
Yep. And again, cars like that were built like tanks.
Yeah, you were more worried about who you hit than yourself back then. I like the idea that he's obscured from her vision because of this.
Mm-hmm.
If she comes out like a deadite, I'm going to be very upset with you for not warning me.
But her arm popped off.
So she wasn't...
Was she one the whole time? Or was she switched?
I'm going to... willing to bet dude sucked on her boob and had sex with her. He probably could tell if she was real or not when that happened. And if not, that's where the real money is in real dolls, right? That's terrifying. That's a good effect.
Yeah.
All it needs is a lot more milk and it would look like the one from Aliens.
Yeah, so yeah, kind of like Bishop or Ash.
I prefer to say Bishop because Ash was not a nice man.
I can't lie to you about your chances, but you do have my sympathies. God, I love that line.
Bishop was awesome. He saved them.
He did.
Bishop! With his last bit of strength, he saves them. Well, he did... Oh my god.
Evil Dead.
He did say that the Mark IIs or whatever were a marked improvement on the emotional cortex of them. And I still haven't seen Alien 3 or Resurrection, so I have no idea if there's
Alien
more.
3 is okay, depending on which cut you watch.
Are there any more?
There is Alien Resurrection, and then the Alien
No,
VP.
I've seen... I mean, as far as... are there any more androids?
Yes. Call is a third gen in Resurrection.
Is that good or
androids that were built by other androids?
Does that mean it bad?
No, oppressed for sure.
Okay. So basically, Bishop is like the peak of human design?
Yes. Or you could argue the David series was more advanced.
Good God. Why won't you die? Austin Powers, right? It's a good effect. So I want if she was swapped, let's say she was, where's her body?
Maybe they
Melted her down.
or took her parts and made one that looks like her, sort of thing. You know what I mean?
He gonna be one of them, you think?
No, he's outside of town.
The movie should be over. Like, you know what I mean? This is kind of weird. It's having this, like, false ending. How has it been playing 24/7?
A lot of money. Advertisements. It's on every channel.
Oh, so he was calling the FTC
Yep.
to try to pull it down from every channel. Oh, because there were only the 3 VHF channels.
Yep.
That's the end of the movie?
Yep. I love that.
Okay, it took a little while to get there. I can see why people were kind of bummed about some of the... It's a little uneven. Mm-hmm. Great ideas, but this last 10 minutes didn't need to happen.
Yeah.
The fight with her robot, it didn't make sense why she was a robot. Like, there was no consequence of her being a robot.
Mm-hmm. It's just, hey, here's a guy who used to be
Hey,
your friend.
guess what? You had sex with her and now she's a robot. Mm-hmm. Well, that didn't need to be her. Why couldn't it have been them both going there and her... You know what would have been better?
What?
Them both racing there to try to get... both using... She's using a payphone. He's using that. And what happens is he runs in to try to change the channel. The kids have their masks on. How great would it have been if one of the kids just randomly said, hey, miss, and put a mask on her
Yeah.
as it starts flashing, and that's the end of the movie. So she doesn't make it, and he's left alone, and his
Yeah.
kids are dead or whatever.
So, yeah, what did you think of Halloween 3? Did you like it?
Yes, I
It's
feel
different.
for an hour and 38 minutes, it should have been an hour and 20.
Yeah. So I'm glad you guys had a chance to enjoy this. Like I said, we jumped all over the place, but it's like hanging out with us while watching a
Yeah.
movie. So
It's a birthday Halloween movie for you.
yeah. So hopefully, folks, like I said, if you want to pick this up on 4K, you can do that by going to Amazon.ca, Amazon.com, or by ShoutFactory.com itself if you want to pick this up. Though I have a feeling this one will be hard to find, and I have a feeling if you want it in 4K, buy it now.
You can still get it on Amazon, but yeah, get it now or get it right after Halloween.
Yeah, because I've got a feeling this will be one of the harder ones to collect at some point. So hopefully they'll put out a 4K box set.
That'd
soon.
be nice.
Yeah. So anyway, folks, for This Week in Geek, we have been...
Alex, the producer.
I've been Mike the Birdman saying, Silver Shamrock.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
It's almost time, kids. The clock is ticking. Be in front of your TV sets for the Horathon. And remember the big giveaway at 9. Don't miss it. And don't forget to wear your masks. The clock is ticking. It's almost time.
Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember, lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.